Well, Jim, let's get one final question here this week on the show. This is an off-topic question.
All righty.
Sent by the original superstar of Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru, before Rocky the Ramone, before Charlie from Starkville. This question was sent by John Fell in Baltimore.
Going back to the OG John Fell.
The man,
Jumpin' Johnny Fell.
The man who started it all, John Fell in Baltimore. He would like you to do a little word association with various names that he put here. Again, off topic. Are you prepared? Are you ready?
Okay. I have no knowledge of this ahead of time.
Rod Serling.
There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man, a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity, a middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition. It lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge, a dimension, in short, that we call the Twilight Zone. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. I loved Rod Serling from the time that I was a wee little fellow, wee Willie Winky, in watching the Twilight Zone, and then Night Gallery wasn't his fault. It was a shitty show, but I loved it just for the introductions.
Alfred Hitchcock.
Good evening. I loved Hitchcock. See, the thing about Alfred Hitchcock was he was a bigger star, mainstream name than Rod Serling. But also remember, while Hitchcock was a great director, he never actually wrote most of that stuff, nor really any of the TV episodes. So Hitchcock was a great personality, had that spooky face, was a great director, but Serling was the writer of the two.
W.C. Fields.
I love Fields. Wait, John Fell has snuck into my house and looked at my shelves down in the TV room. Fields is my favorite classic comedian. He was consistently funny, but in an antisocial way that was totally different than everything else that was going on in the world at the time with comedians. I love the fucking one-liners, and you know, you could apply a lot of his shit to any situation, but I always loved the material and the delivery. But did you realize that the W.C. Fields that we know today was actually his second career? Actually, not even second, maybe third or fourth. In the 1900s, as in between 1900 and 1910, W.C. Fields was the biggest star on Broadway. He was not only the biggest star on Broadway, he was one of the biggest names and one of the biggest attractions in vaudeville, and he was known as the world's greatest juggler. And the reason why that some of his juggling still exists on film, because most of it was not captured, is because when he got in the movies, he did the silence and they flopped because he was trying to do a gimmick and he couldn't be verbal. But then later on, by the time he got into sound films, he was so old and his drinking had impaired his motor skills to the point where he could only do flashes of the juggling that he did. But everybody says that if there was film of him in his prime available to see, that he was the greatest juggler in the history of entertainment. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Well, there you go.
Bela Lugosi.
I love Bela Lugosi is the classic Dracula. And I'm sorry, I know there's Christopher Lee fans, but he wasn't Hungarian. He had an English accent, for heaven's sake. We want the Count. And poor Bela, if he could have only lived past his drug problems and etc., and he died in the 50s before the resurrection of the Universal horror films really came about, but he would have made a fortune in fucking residuals and appearances.
Adam West.
TV's Batman. The only man that should be playing Batman on television and the only man that should be mayor of Quahog.
I was surprised. I thought you would go with left and right turn indicators there, but nope. Guess not.
Well, I will flesh it out. He was, as we all know, a very polite and respectful and law-abiding man who used his left and right turn indicators with regularity in his automobile.
Robbie the Robot.
I loved Robot. I grew up with the robot on Lost in Space. But then once that I, obviously started being able to see all the different science fiction movies and everything, Robbie the Robot was second place in my heart. And then, of course, when they actually got to meet in that one infamous episode on Lost in Space, when the Robbie the Robot was actually a robot left over from another civilization on the planet. Well, that was just swell. But Forbidden Planet is an underestimated movie.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
The first time I got to see Tor Johnson, the super Swedish angel, even though I didn't know he was a wrestler when I first saw this movie, you could tell he was a wrestler. And of course, how can you dislike a movie not only directed by Ed Wood, but featuring cardboard tombstones? I bet you that'll be the next cinematic masterpiece on AEW. Plan 9 from the football field.
From Jacksonville.
Plan 9 from Jacksonville. That would mean they had 8 plans before that, and I don't believe they got that many plans.
Underdog.
Here I come to save the day. Wait a minute, can I do it? Doom 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 da. When criminals in this world appear and break the laws that they should fear and frighten those who see and hear, the cry goes out from far and near for underdog, 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 underdog. Speed of lightning, roar of thunder, fighting all who rob or plunder. Underdog, underdog. Second verse.
No.
When in the news, the headlines read of those whose hearts are filled with greed and those. All right, okay.
Superman.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, but the suckiest, shittiest TV show that was ever put on television. Have you been watching out on Heroes and Icons on Sunday? 11 a.m. Eastern to 12 noon is two episodes of Superman. I loved it when I was a kid and got to see it when I'd go to Aunt Lola's. Channel 19, the independent station in Cincinnati, would air The Adventures of Superman, and it was so thrilling to see Superman on television until now. I realized they bungled that whole program. It was gangsters and goofy one-off criminals and malcontents, no supervillains, nothing from the comics, no Lex Luthor. Crummy program. But I love Superman.
The Invaders.
Jesus Christ, you know what? John has the privilege of having gone through all the programs and making notes to get to my individual likes. Yes, The Invaders. We've talked about this on the program also. A fine 1960s sci-fi program featuring Roy Thinnis as the only person who knew that the invaders were already here. The opening with the voiceover by William Conrad scared the shit out of me. It was an Aaron Spelling production. No, it wasn't Aaron Spelling. It was oh shit. Oh goddamn, you're going to have to edit this out because now I look like a complete imbecile. Quinn Martin is what I was trying to say. Quinn Martin production.
Aaron Spelling.
Rather than Aaron Spelling. Quinn Martin production. He did a lot of detective shows, branched out into science fiction. It was very well done because it was realistic. And for a couple of years when I was a kid, every time we'd go out in public, my mom would take me to the grocery or whatever, I'd look to see if anybody had a left little pinky finger that was sticking out at an odd angle that wouldn't bend because I was afraid they were the invaders.
Marvel Comics.
The NWA to DC's WWF.
The Fantastic Four.
Well, the top team, that's when I knew that comics had passed me by. When Spider-Man and the Avengers exceeded the Fantastic Four in popularity. And you think now for the modern audience that Fantastic Four aren't the main event, the Stone Cold, the Rock, the Hulk, because of the shitty movies and the way they've been left in the dust by all the better movies.
Well, that's what it is.
The Fantastic Four were the group. They started it all. They were the main event.
The movies that they've made for the Fantastic Four have been awful, but now they are part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the hope is that they'll be rebooted correctly because Marvel has just done nothing but hit home runs with everything they've done. and incorporated in the universe, and now you get to see them interact with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and everyone else.
Well, we'll see.
You've
Ben
never
Grimm
watched any of
was
those
my
movies,
favorite.
have you?
Huh?
You've never watched any of those movies, have you?
What, any of the, that's a blanket statement.
The
Any of
Marvel
those-
Cinematic Universe movies.
Oh, yes, I like Iron Man. I've watched a couple of Avengers. It's just they keep changing the fucking backstories. And then that, to me, that makes it phony. When it's accepted that it's gamma radiation, whatever the case, don't go changing. Don't go changing, try and please me. I love you just the way you are.
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, the most famous native of Louisville until I came along, obviously. God, I got so much heat. With it in the locker room and with David Crockett, I think at one point, remember I told you David used to get on me about sometimes things I'd say. So Crockett in '88 is running a show in Louisville. I'm excited about coming back. It's going to be downtown at the convention center instead of the Gardens. But we were doing the syndicated TV, and David and Tony were doing the show, and I was standing over them where they were, doing the commentary while the Midnight's having the match. And I said, and I want you to know the people of Louisville, the mayor's already contacted me. They're having a big dinner, a big welcoming home celebration for me when I come home. They ran everything by. They even ran the menu by me. They asked, do you want broccoli? I said, no, we got Muhammad Ali. We don't need another vegetable. Ooh. Ooh. Anyway, I love the greatest.
What did David Crockett say to you?
He said, you shouldn't say things like that. Well, I'm just, trying to get some heat, David.
Do people from Louisville feel a sense of pride about Hunter S. Thompson?
Not as much as Ali.
Well, not as much as Ali.
You'll find some people probably down on Bardstown Road in the Highlands that are just Hunter S. Thompson disciples. But I haven't seen his picture on the side of a fucking 10-story building here in town lately, so I think Ali's still ahead.
Stewie Griffin.
Stewie Griffin! Wait, hold on.
I come bearing a gift. I'll give you a hint. It's in my diaper, and it's not a toaster.
It's a Mars bar.
And finally, Penelope Pitstop.
I just feel so bad for Bluto. Because I know that, he's from Bulgari, right? Because he's Bulgarian. So he's from the country of Bulgari.
Bulgaria.
Well, whatever. They don't have all the things we got here in America, like cartoons and things like that. And he didn't know who Penelope Pitstop was. And I feel so bad for him. But can't you see that? Can't you see him and little Pip in their car on Saturday morning on Wacky Races when you get up? Can't you see Dick Dastardly and Muttley leaving them in the dust because they're two dull-witted idiots that can't figure out how to work their car? And then here comes Penelope Pitstop, and she's smiling as she buzzes past them as well. Because sooner or later, everybody is going to blow past Bluto and Pip Sabian. I love Penelope Pitstop. Even the real-life one, she's so virginal and chaste, sweet.